Hi, this film is just really about my eyebrow routine because lots of people have asked me what I do with my eyebrows, whether I pluck them or wax them or thread them, or lots of questions about sort of penciling and powders and things. So I'm just going to talk about that. It feels a bit self-indulgent, but lots of people have asked, so here goes. So I actually didn't pluck my eyebrows till I was about 24 or something for the first time, and I started just taking from underneath the sort of stray ones, and I've really just carried on with that. I've never had them waxed, and I've never had them threaded, simply because I'm a bit frightened, really. I know that there are good threaders and bad threaders, and I'm just frightened I'll get the bad one, or somebody will just take a few that I don't want them to take, and they won't grow back, and I'll be really, really funny about it. So I'm quite fussy about them, in that I like them. I don't like overly plucked eyebrows. I think it's a crime the way lots of young girls now sort of take, too much from here and end up with those tadpoles. I think that's just awful. It just looks so horrible, and it just doesn't frame your face. I think brows should be groomed and polished, but they should be really as thick as you can get away with. The other thing I don't like to do, and the other reason I don't thread them, is I don't ever take anything from the top here. I do get a few hairs up here, and I tend to bleach them. I just use Jolin or one of those other bleaching kits, and I just bleach those ones. And the reason I like to do that personally is because then you don't end up with that very sort of severe, exact line at the top, which again, I feel like it just looks a little bit unnatural. I prefer it when I can just pencil as I want, or powder as I want, and have the line look quite natural, and not have that sort of very, very perfect, very, very exact line at the top. And also I like to be able to see the natural shape, and sometimes I think if I was to go and have them done and I didn't like them, or they took too much, I wouldn't be able to shape them anymore. So I think that, fashions come and go, but I truly believe that a classic brow shape, one that's neat and tidy but not overly plucked, one that has a good bit of thickness between here and here. So this bit, it should always be more or less quite thick to about here, and a straightish line if you can get it, and then to start really curving up here. The top bit is the bit really that shapes your eyebrows. So when I'm doing mine, I normally brush them down the wrong way, and even when I'm doing other people's brows, I tend to always start with the high point, and I just really look at the brow and think, where would the high point be? Where would I like it to be? And how should the arch look? And often I'll use a pencil. This is Lingering by MAC. So I've got a few hairs up here because I haven't bleached them for a while. Most of them are still blonde, but a couple of them are starting to come a bit darker, so I must get around to doing them. So what I would do here, brushing them the wrong way, so I've got a couple of hairs here because I haven't bleached them for quite a while, so I've got a couple of dark ones coming above. So I'll get around to bleaching them just to give that a little bit a cleaner feel up there, but I want to really concentrate on the arch, and I've got a few missing there, or they just never grew. So I'm gonna kind of trace the high point. It's a bit like the architecture. You need the structure of a building, the sort of shell of a building, and then you put the bricks all around it. It's a bit like that with eyebrows, in that you need to sketch out the basic structure. And then once you've got that, if you brush back over, then you've got the kind of structure that you're going to build the brow around, the basis of it, rather. Once you've got it straight, then you can, I tend to just then fill in with a few fine feathery strokes, And then here, again, keep it quite fine and feathery. I just extend it down just a little bit, not too much. And then here, I don't tend to do much in the way of penciling because I don't like very heavy brows here. I don't like it when, you know, you really change your expression, look quite strange. What I do is I just fill in this little gap here. Again, I keep it quite feathery. Just the bottom line there, so I've got more of a thickness. And then anything in the corner here I keep super, super light, and I do that when I'm doing other people's makeup as well. I hate a really strong line here or overly made up. Just looks like a bad makeup job in my book. So that's how I like to do my brow with pencil. So for my other brow, I've got one on, and there's my pencil. Now, my other brow is slightly higher. Just everyone's face is, most people's faces aren't completely symmetrical, and I'm definitely one that isn't. So when I talk, this brow tends to go up more than this one does anyway. And they're never going to be exactly the same shape, but I don't mind that. I don't try and make it exactly the same. I do bear in mind that this arch is naturally higher, so I don't bring it up as high as this one. But apart from that, I don't mind that they're slightly different. I think sometimes you can get so tortured in trying to pluck them to be exactly the same as the other one. And in trying to do that, you can end up over plucking one just to try and get it to be like the other one, when actually the other one's in a higher position on your face, or, you know, at a slightly different angle, because that's what brows are, and naturally they're like that. So the other thing I do is I often use powder. I use a little angle brush, and I tend to wet it first. I think when you use powder, you can either use it dry. If you use it dry, it's good for if you've already got quite thick eyebrows anyway, and you're more either changing the colour of them or you're filling them in. You know, we've got a lot of hair, but you're making them look sort of thicker and more filled in. When it's wet, it acts more like a pencil, so it's good for creating the structure, and then you can carry on with a little bit drier just to fill in any gaps. So the secret is, for me, the right colour. I'm using a Suqqu one because they just do really good coloured powders, and I'm going to mix the brown and the grey together. I think it's often the case with brows that it's so much about getting the right colour. You know, if it's too chestnutty or too browny or too black, it can end up looking completely artificial. So I'm going to do exactly what I did on the other side, in that I'm just going to brush that down. And as I already have a slightly higher arc here anyway, I'm just going to fill in the area behind the arch, so you can see I'm just sort of filling in that gap. So I'm just going to fill in the area behind the arch there. So that gives me a little bit of structure before I brush over. And then, very much in the way that I did with the pencil, I'm going to start just blending that structure in. I don't need as much on this side because I don't have the gap that I have on the other side. And again, I'm keeping it really light in towards the inner corner. This colour's just a tiny bit darker than the pencil I used on my other brow. So that's my brows done. This one's quite a bit darker than this one because the powder I've used is darker than that pencil. Both of them are a bit darker than I would probably have during the day. I'd have them a little lighter. But I would definitely do this kind of a brow in the evening. And yeah, just to recap on my brow routine, I've never had them waxed, I've never had them threaded. I don't want to have them waxed or threaded. I'd probably be the worst customer that they've ever had, even if I went to the best person in the world. Because for me, every hair is completely precious and essential. I'm quite controlling about it. Because I really hate, I like very natural looking brows, and I don't like thin brows. I bleach from above because I just like a natural looking edge up here. And I find I can get it more if I bleach up there rather than start to pluck or do anything else. Yeah, I like to keep them fairly thick, and I don't worry too much that they're not 100% symmetrical. I kind of know that this brow is higher on my face anyway, so I just work with it, and I sort of think it adds to the naturalness anyway. So I hope that's answered all of your questions, and I hope it was helpful.